Welcome to Mastering Agility. If you want to listen to authentic conversations with the most inspiring guests, find like-minded people in the Mastering Agility Discord community, or both online and face-to-face events, this is the platform for you. Grab a drink, sit back, and join professional Scrum trainers Sander Dorr, Jim Sammons, and their guests in an all-new episode.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show live from Helsinki, Finland. And let me tell you, we've got a dynamic duo in the studio today. Visuals, agility, trust, conflict. This conversation has everything. Please welcome Olina Glindevi and Ben Walder.
Yep, and they're the authors of the Visual Agile Coach Playbook, a book that's equal parts creativity, collaboration, and caffeine-fueled late nights. They somehow managed to write a book packed with visuals while holding down full-time jobs and, oh yeah, parenting. No pressure.
We're diving into how they navigated the chaos of co-creating a book across countries, what happens when your co-author insists on purple shirts, and why trusting each other's strengths was the key to making this work.
Plus, how visual thinking isn't just fun doodles. It's a serious superpower for your Agile teams and maybe your career's secret weapon. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. We are coming to you live from Helsinki, Finland, and we have two amazing guests, Ben and Olina. Many of us just left your session earlier today. So can you tell us what you were doing here at ScanAgile about your talk and introduce yourselves a bit?
All right. You go first.
That means she doesn't know the answer. And that happened quite a lot.
I hope she knows who she
invite
is.
you to the conversation.
In the session. I think we probably had two aims in the session. You're getting people confident enough to use visuals in their ways of working.
Yeah.
And I kind of kicked it off with saying I wanted to inspire people to be at this conference speaking themselves next year, and by telling origin story. I think we did that. You were in the workshop. What did you think?
I think you did. Yeah, I think you both achieved your goals there. It's probably very relatable for people, and you demystified and were vulnerable, which I think is very big. We were talking earlier today about that. Like, we're all nervous. I mean, I don't care if you're a keynote, if you've done it 15 times. If you're not nervous a little bit, you're a psychopath, right? Like, so your book that's sitting in front of us, the Visual Agile Coach Playbook, is full of visuals. And I heard you say, Ben, and I want to ask about this later, about putting together a book that's so jam-packed of both words and pictures. I can only imagine that. But how do you guys spend your weeks or your days now? Like, how do you pay the proverbial bills, I guess? What do you do?
Well, you don't make any money from writing a book, that's for sure.
No Kanye money?
No.
It's odd, isn't it?
Yeah. So we both have day jobs. Yours is in, well, what's your day job?
Yeah, so I work as an RT. So I have a full day job, so to speak, and we did have that during the writing as well. So the creation of this book as well. You were on and off work for a little bit of time, right? But yeah, that was the main challenge, I would say, to get this piece of art together whilst also rocking a job. It was an intense period of time for sure.
Which part was intense? Just you had to work with Ben, or the job combination?
Oh my God, yeah, both. Yeah, but I think we learned a lot about about our collaboration. About you. You probably learned some stuff about yourself because I probably gave you some feedback. I know I received some feedback, and I learned about myself as well. It was certainly intense, but I also, I think we also found some basic limitations for what's doable. Like you still have, I'm a mom of two, I have a day job and so on. And then trying to create something on the side together like this was, in hindsight, that was a lot to take on. I'm like, I had periods of time when I'm like, we're probably not going to make it. Like, we have to cut it now because it was very intense, a lot of work.
So this is something we hear from, I think, every single author, right? Like the slog and the fact that they don't make money doing this. So if you have day jobs, you have families, you have all the other trappings of life that we all have, it's got to be a labor of love, right? Like, why else would you do it? Like, have the two of you ever thought, like, why are we doing this? If we're not going to get rich from it, if it's not going to be our job, if you have day jobs and therefore maybe self-marketing, self-promotion isn't the primary goal, then why is it? Like, why are you sitting in front of a beautiful copy of your book now?
I think mainly because we were two in this. Like, I would have given up 100 times and I would never have finished this because I was fed up so many times. And I think you were occasionally as well.
Yeah, but it was always my childhood dream: fly helicopters, play rugby, or write a book. Didn't do any of the other two. So
I guess I got to do this third one then.
And so that was a real driver for me. Now, of course, not in a million years did I think that I'd be writing a book called the Visual Agile Coach Playbook. And when we talk about the process, it was quite interesting how the work got segregated, because you would think that you worked in very, very tight partnership. Now, we did in the creative and the kind of idea forming stage, but then to be able to fit the work around our day jobs, be able to realize that I'm living in London, Ollie's living in Stockholm, you're not there every single day. You end up segregating the tasks, and you end up segregating the tasks to each other's strengths. So I do the writing, you do the visuals. And to be able to do that, you end up building quite a high degree in trust. So you trusted me to do the words, I trusted you to do the visuals. And I think it was the element of trust and the belief in the other person that I always believed and knew we would get it over the line. And that trust was built up during what we call our sort of 52 weeks, post a week for 52 weeks in LinkedIn when we first started working together. So you built up an understanding of working together. You build up an appreciation of each other's strengths and weaknesses, and you build up that trust as well. And I think that's what drove us through.
Can you move slightly closer to the mic, like keep it this distance, because your voice is dropping off slightly. Now I do feel guilty because you're just explaining how much of work this is. And while I was just realizing, while you're all doing this, you also made the visuals for my book and Ryan's, just to top things off even worse. How did you, both of you, deal with that stress of having those jobs, trying to figure out the sweet spot of who does what? How did you do that?
I think we didn't do it at time. We certainly had a few times when we sort of felt like we needed a small break in this because it was so intense. But I think quite early on we agreed on doing it because I remember you had a really fixed version of exactly what we were going to do, exactly what it was going to look like. You made a face now because it was painful, wasn't it, for both of us? Yeah. But that was kind of interesting. So quite quickly we came into quite some argument about how do we create the some sort of prototype, or like where do we start? And we quite quickly agreed on, okay, we need to do this agile.
And that was quite an interesting kind of flipping of the switch. So we realized if we were going to write about a book with agile in the title, we needed to work agile. So I would have a very fixed view and had it all planned out. And that was the worst thing I could have done. And it was actually, I was out on my bike, cycling, and the idea of flipping the book on its head kind of came into that moment when I was doing something completely different and not thinking about the book, and that changed the whole sort of format and then layout or design. And if that moment hadn't have happened, we definitely wouldn't have got it over the line.
That's something we talk about a lot. Is some of those real big ideas to me and for me always come when I'm not trying to think about them. Like, I do my best brainstorming. I have my best ideas, creative ideas, when I'm doing something totally different. And the fact that you're sitting here after riding your bike in London tells me something. You must be resilient, because I've been in London, driven in London, and that's not where I'd want to ride a bike. But you've referenced a few times like friction, right? I'm not going to say conflict, but friction between the two of you.
conflict.
Yeah,
Conflict.
that's what it was.
Open conflict. Tell us the story. Like, what was it? What was it about? How'd you deal with it? Because obviously you're here and you look very friendly. You're not at each other's throats. So
Yeah, I think we worked through it, but I think the first points of conflict was really, I remember you had really fixed ideas of what the end result would look like. And I'm like, stop. I'm the creative person. I need to have the creative freedom. Otherwise I'm not doing this. And I think we had to do a little bit of sparring around that until I was like, okay, I probably said like, okay, I'm not doing it. Bye. If I can't do it in the way that I want to do it, or if I can't do it in my way, I'm not doing it at all. I think we probably came to that conclusion.
So I'm looking at Sander here because I know Sander writes to you and says, I want a visual in this specific format and it's got to look like this.
But the thing
I soon learned that was not the way that we were going to be able to produce this. And I think that goes back to the trust piece. And it was a real recognition for myself that if you're working with a creative person and you may have the best ideas in the world, or so you think, and you start forcing them onto the other person, it really suffocates and tramples on their own creativity and freedom. I think it also helped that there was that segregation of work. So I'm not going to do the visuals. You're not going to do the writing. So that kind of kept us safe to a certain point.
Also that there is an ocean in between.
Yeah.
It certainly helps from time to time.
Well, so, I could feed her, or we just created a Word document like for this and this chapter. I see this image, this image, this image. Like this is what roughly we want to see, or what I want to see. Sometimes we get feedback like, "What the fuck is this? I have no clue what this means." Or and still, like then you go back and forth, and then she'll come up with some magic stuff that then exactly depicts what's in my brain, which is pretty cool. How did that work for you guys in that sense? Like, did you just create all the visuals, or did you come up with some stuff that you want to see?
I think we came to a point where you sort of gave up the period of time when you wanted to give your feedback. You wanted to, the girl's shirt, shouldn't it be purple instead? And I think we arrived to
really
some sort of agreement. Yeah, it was. Shouldn't her arm look like this and have 5 fingers? But I think we arrived quite quickly to a place where I'm like, okay, if I'm doing it, it has to be in my way. I don't want any feedback on the end result. I know what I'm doing. I think.
But the way the process worked, and the process worked badly at some points because not between you and I think that was all right. But when you and you'll know from a book is that you have words, then we have the images, and then we talk to a publisher, and a publisher has a design team, and within the design team, they then have people who are the copywriters, and they set it up. So you actually have a cast of, not thousands, but a lot that are involved in that process. And that process wasn't agile, and that process wasn't efficient, etc. And I think actually, as we saw the problems with the process, that brought us together as a team. So at the outset, I would design each chapter and I would just state the visuals that I wanted, etc. But when we put it together with the publisher and the design team, economics and page setup and digital picture quality all started to change the landscape and the environment, and things were changing all the time. And then that's when I realized, you know what, Olina's got a point here. Why be pushing her to do a set visual early on in the process when actually everything's going to change? But when we got into the design process and the pages were coming together and the time clock started to tick, I think that's actually, we came back together then on the visuals. It was easier to set up our production line.
So Ollie, did Ben, and I'm going to watch his eyes when you answer this, did he give you any creative feedback through the process that you liked and implemented?
That I liked.
I mean, the purple shirt thing is revolutionary.
Yeah.
But I mean, was there anything else?
Oh my gosh, I can't remember. Did you like that? They actually implemented, and you? I can't remember. I'm like,
Well, it's funny you should say that. See
yes,
the front
Ben.
cover?
Let's hear from Ben now.
Get front cover. Do you remember how?
No.
We had to sign a front cover, and I was like, I think we should do this. No, I think we should do this. No, I think we should do this. No, we need a front cover. And then finally, I put it into Chat GPT or AI and said, "Can you design a cover of a table with a diagram of people around it?" And when I sent that through to you, at that point you went, "Oh, okay," and then you created this. But the flip side of that is that Olina has been using ChatGPT for her sort of some of her writing elements. So in the same way that I was threatening to replace Olina with AI, she had long since replaced me with AI in the process. Do you remember that story?
Not at all.
No.
Like, for real. I can't remember. Like, I made this up. Like, that's totally my idea.
I love it, and the reason I'm asking is we've talked a lot about feedback. We had a whole episode about feedback a couple months ago, and I have a 2-part question. So Ben, I'll give you both parts first. Is now that you've worked Agile, or are you a convert, and are you going to apply that to either future work together, or just future work in general, and then also, you all, it seems to have done something that I struggle with, which is this idea of, if we're going to work Agile, doing a divide and conquer, right? Like playing to each other's strength. You stay in your lane, I'm going to stay in my lane. I am adamant that can work. And in many cases and teams, that's the absolute right thing. But if we were trying to build a 9-person team, dividing and conquering by skill set is going to cause other people to not develop certain skills. So I'm curious if while staying in your lanes, if you found more of a visual voice, and if you found more of a writing voice, so that if you were to do this again, God forbid, it sounds like, it'd be less of the whole stay in your lane thing, or if you would actually double down on that.
I think actually I found that, as I mentioned earlier, like I had really low confidence when it came to writing in English and speaking English and so on before we met. But when we started putting the text and the visuals together, and you saw the end result, or you started to see the end result, I remember I had some thoughts about, well, this chapter is maybe too long, and this text is this and that. And when I read certain pieces of it, I felt like, oh, I actually have some point of views on this. Which was a little bit of a surprise, because I always felt like the words, I'm not interested, like whatever, basically, as long as it looks good. But I think I discovered that, hey, I am kind of interested in the full end result, and therefore I want to actually read through the stuff. And I had some comments, I remember.
It's interesting because as we started to move on to talking and thinking about a second book, and I presented some drafts for that, you definitely had some stronger thoughts and came back with some sort of definite, no, that isn't right, that doesn't work, and you made to think that. So I would certainly agree the confidence increased in that respect. And actually, even in our very early posts, I always felt that you were very strong with your feedback, which is you're writing too much, or that's not interesting, or that you've got to get to the point, or etc. So, I think that's always been quite valuable, and you weren't shy in speaking your mind.
Both Jim and I are experienced consultants and trainers. Therefore, we know how important it is for organizations to have the fundamentals in place before delivering high-value products. And this starts with understanding the theory behind whatever framework, method, or process organizations apply. And this is where Zebia comes in. Zebia is a pioneering software engineering and IT consultancy company, transforming and executing at the intersection of domain and technology to create digital leaders for our people, clients, partners, and communities. As a gift for our Mastering Agility audience, they provided us with a discount code MA10 when signing up for their open enrollment classes to get 10% off. Go to zebia.com/academy to find the entire curriculum of courses. That is Zebia, XEBIA.com/academy to find all their courses.
So for those of the listeners who didn't have the benefit of being in the session today, like you both kind of talked a little bit more about these fears that you had. You've said that, you weren't confident speaking in English, which to me is shocking because to me, you sound like a fluent native of US. And you said you weren't very confident with drawing, and I watched you draw on the flip chart, and you did well above average, right? Which is probably a testament to each of you. And Ben, I'm curious if you would agree with this, but I think it's very easy. Almost all of the professionals we work with can read and write, so it's very easy to give feedback on the written word. But not all of us are artists or feel like we are artists. So I think that creative stuff feels more like, I can't critique that because I can't do that. But everyone's written a letter or typed in a Word document, right? So just, it sounds like you were good at giving him good feedback. As a writer, how did you receive that feedback? Because we struggle, or not we, I won't say we, although I will say we struggle with getting feedback, right? Like the old idea of all feedback's a gift. Like, I don't think so. Like at some point I don't want feedback, and I definitely am not the fastest to receive feedback.
No, but all feedback is a gift, except some gifts just suck.
Like a lump of coal or...
Exactly.
Right? Like
you don't have to be happy with every gift.
Pete putting bad things in your clogs. I'm sorry, I'm probably
very
butchering
stereotyping.
Dutch stereotyping. Okay. So anyway,
I'll give you some feedback later.
Please do. I'm 417 days in Duolingo for Netherlands. Trying.
I think maybe from a written words perspective, we're all very used to having written word critiqued. And critiqued is maybe a little bit different from feedback, etc. So, and quite often you write something, you don't get any feedback at all. So it is good to get it. Actually, we were working on second book project, and I was with one of the contributors, had a call the other evening, and I felt that I'd written this really great piece. It was kind of witty and it was kind of quite contrarian. And when I asked him, did he like it? He was like, straight no. But what he had done is he'd gone into the document and he'd marked it all up. So my initial article, my initial content had then been a catalyst for him to then really drill down on what he wanted from the article and from the content and what he actually meant. So you start to then engage in a two-way process of kind of co-writing and co-creating, which I think then goes beyond pure feedback, because you're creating again together in partnership. And I think that's, we joke about writing the book, etc. But the thing that I think have always been very strong at is being that catalyst, that for creativity and giving strong feedback and then having accountability and working in partnership. So if you have too thin a skin, don't work with anyone, I think is probably. But if you want to improve and you want to learn and you want to deliver something, then you've got to find whether it's a partner or it's a team, etc. And feedback is part of that.
Now, you were talking about the second book that you're writing. Can you share more about that? Do you want to share more about that?
Yeah, I'd love to share more about that. We've learned a lot from the first book, so it's going to be quite different. What we felt with the first book is that it's not backward looking, but it took models and frameworks and tools from the past, and then hopefully it recontextualized, reapplied, or it simplified and made it engaging or easy for people to engage with. But we felt about what about something more forward looking, and what does the future involve. And I think also on our journey of working together on LinkedIn and putting our stuff out there, we've also found another community of people who are thought leaders, innovative, creating, or brave enough to post, and we want to work with them. So we're looking to write a series of articles and content on the broad subject of the future of work. And we're inviting people who have a passion or a project or a specialist subject to talk to us about it. And then we consider together how that could be part of the puzzle for the future of work. So in the same way we wrote a book, if you're going to write a book with Agile in the title, Work Agile, what we're trying to do as part of this project, part of this experiment, is if you're going to write about the future, write as if the future has arrived. So with this completely collaborative, open sourced, open network approach to producing a book.
So your book title, the current one, has one of those triggering words in it, which is playbook, right? And I think this is one of the examples where it's absolutely the right word, right? Because the way I would see it is it's a book of plays and skills that you can choose to implement and deploy in anything. And most of us that have negative connotations to the word playbook is when it's applied to like organizational change or people type things, because there is no recipe for that. There's no playbook for an agile transformation. What would be like the best compliment you could get? Like, let's say you sell 100 of these into one organization and you walk into that organization, like what would you see or hear from those people who had consumed it that would just, you would be like, wow, it was all worth it. Like all those arguments about Ben's crappy feedback on my colors and font choices and all that, like what would that be?
I had one person email me the other day, like yesterday actually, saying she brought the book, and to her it was really, she only plowed through it, but already was valuable to her. Like that's the best thing I can hear. Mm-hmm. Like when people come back and say like, this is really useful stuff for me, I can implement this today, and I feel encouraged to do it. I couldn't, like that made it all worth it.
One of that's kind of the founding sort of stone of the book is the role profile of whether it's a character or a person, the Visual Agile Coach. And we then have 9 roles and responsibilities for the Visual Agile Coach, which then represent the chapter. And the biggest compliment for me is the people see that role profile and can see an aspect of it that is relevant to them in their role, in their job, or they want to adopt it or be the Visual Agile Coach. And I personally wish that I'd been the Visual Agile Coach 20 years ago, or I'd met Visual Agile coaches as per the role profile earlier in my career. So if it inspires someone to take on some or all of those roles and responsibilities and embody them in their career or in their personal development, then that's the that's kind of like what gives me a feeling of sort of pride.
Yeah. And Sandra, I'm curious what you think, but a lot of times I'm asked to observe a meeting or a session or a workshop or something and give my thoughts. And one of the phrases I say all the time is somebody will show me, like maybe they were just breaking down a big piece of work and they were talking about the technical thing and the UI design and all that. And they'll say, Jim, what do you think? I'm like, it's great. Less words, more pictures. And the first time they hear that, like, what do you mean? I'm like, you just wrote 500 words about what you're doing. And I, as an outsider, can't visualize what you're describing. And one of the ways I help people, and it's not exactly visual agile coaching, but it's like taking an image of a screenshot and annotating it and adding arrows, drawing a rectangle and labeling it. Like this is like this thing on our backlog is this button. Oh, like to me that's a skill. And as the market is contracting, right, and a lot of people are kind of reevaluating their career path. And we were talking last night, a group of us, about increasingly we're hearing from colleagues who are like questioning all their life decisions and like, do I really want to do this? And it's harder and harder. We were talking to Trisha earlier today about it's harder and harder to get maybe a job. So I've talked to a lot of people just when I'm asked for my advice about finding an X factor. And I think visual coaching could be someone's or a group of someone's X factor. Like maybe you do all this, but you also have these skills. And it doesn't mean you have to be as good of an artist as Ollie, but even if you can implement the basic alphabet, right? The visual alphabet, that begin to build your visual vocabulary, I find, I don't know what you two would think, a little bit goes a long way to differentiate yourself. Because if your colleagues are all using words in Microsoft Word to describe something and you can draw 7 or 10 different shapes and put them together, that could be a big deal.
Yeah.
See, I actually use it as a way of getting people together in a room. So it's so easy in global organizations or in remote working to never get together. So if I can, I'll say to the team, hey, come in, we're doing a workshop. And I think as team leaders or any type of leader now, to increase the engagement from your teams, you need to create events. You need to give them a reason to, whether it's to come into the office or come together. And by having that whiteboard or having that flip chart and trying to figure out a problem and solve a problem actually brings people together. So yeah, you might solve the problem, which is great, or you might get started on it, but you've also created an event that's actually brought people together to really emphasize the human interaction and increase that feeling of working in a team. And I think you can't underestimate the power of people being together in the same location and interacting and problem solving in a creative way.
I know you get to teach a lot in person. Like, what's your opinion on? I know you use a lot of these drawing skills. I've seen your visuals, but like, how big of a deal is it for you?
My drawing skills still suck, and I had to miss your workshop, so I'll try to pick the next one. But it helps so much. Like from the beginning with Post-it, when I explain Post-it rules in my trainings, I always mention like we're visual learners, most of us anyway. And the more pictures that you make, the better it jumps out. That's why I hate these PowerPoint presentations with a lot of text and almost no images, because then there's no power anymore and definitely no point. So the more visuals you create, the better it is to tell the story, but also to align on, are we still on the same track? Do we have the same image for like the future state of whatever we're trying to do as well? I've done that with many leaders as well, and it draw out what you think the vision is for this product. And if then you see this alignment while they're saying the same words and they feel like we're aligned, we are saying the same things, but they have a completely different image in their minds. And only when they're drawing that pops out, and then they'll have to do something with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And our previous guest he was talking about storytelling, right? And as part of your workshop, that's how you started, was telling us your story and then getting us to think about our story. And I'm going to ask you the same question we asked him, which is, if you think about becoming more visual, are you finding that companies value this? And do they value it enough to invest in it somehow, whether it's bringing people like you in for a workshop or having you teach their people, or even just funding workshops? Like, do you see and hear objections there? Any tips on how someone could overcome? Maybe a listener is in a company that they think this would benefit from, but they need to sell that investment somehow.
That is a tricky one, isn't it? Like we meet in all the workshops that we do. We always meet someone who wants to take this into their company and who's asking for us to come and do it for them as well, because they really see, the ones who participate see the value. Like there's no question about it.
This was an interesting early conversation that we had when we first started working. So I think we talked about in the workshop, I saw the value in the visuals that Olina created to promote and make my writing eye-catching. So I saw the value in the visuals. But the conversation we had over and over again was, how do you make the visuals practical? How do you make them not seen as a fad or a luxury product or just sort of too much fun? And that's actually what drove, I think, the book, and then also the Visual Agile Coach Toolkit as well, was trying to harness the visuals to make them practical so that they had a use. And that can either be simplifying complex models. And we have a number of models that Olina has fantastic visuals that are eye-catching and then engage, or some of the tools and templates that we created and we've now put out on Miro as well. They have a practical use, and it's actually the practical use or the outcome from that is where you get the value, not just getting everyone around to simply have fun and drawing, which of course it is as well, because you were in the workshop and you saw the noise and the energy and the team building in a very quick period of time that happened just from giving people a pen and getting them involved and into a playground to talk about the keynote speech today as well.
Mastering Agility only partners with organizations aligned with our values, and that's exactly why we're excited to work with our sponsor, ScrumMatch. ScrumMatch is a recruiting platform created for and run by true Scrum Masters and product owners. On ScrumMatch, true Scrum Masters and product owners get hired by companies serious about creating more value faster using professional Scrum and product ownership. Right now, they're hiring for a client with exciting Scrum Master vacancies in Paris and Lyon, France. In this role, you'll coach cross-functional teams to deliver cutting-edge digital products, leveraging Agile, data analytics, AI, and lean UX. Enjoy a hybrid work model, a competitive salary, and the opportunity to thrive in a collaborative, innovative environment. Are you interested? Sign up on ScrumMatch and sprint toward your dream job on scrummatch.com.
Well, I'll tell you a story, very, very brief, from a large bank in the U.S. I was working at a number of years ago, and this will probably make you cry in a not humorous way, but I was told, hey, anything you request within reason is approved. Cool. First thing I want to do is bring in more things like blue painter's tape, markers, flip charts, Post-its, all that stuff. Went to the boss. He said, okay, come back to me with what the whole floor needs for a year. I just want one order for a year. I'm like, okay, cool. So I went around, talked to all the teams, talked to all the other coaches, scrum masters, product owners, blah, blah, blah. Total was like $900. Now, bear in mind, this bank manages well over $1 trillion. $900? What are you talking about? What is this? Arts and crafts time? Kindergarten? And I'm like, I thought anything I wanted within reason. Like, you asked me for 12 months of supplies for like 150 people. It's $900. Jesus Christ. Okay, fine. And I ended up getting it. And I'll never forget this. So me asking for those things that we all hold near and dear to our hearts, right, was that. And I'll never forget, like 2 months later, he meets me at the elevator. He's stoked. He's like, dude, you're not going to believe what I got you. And I'm like, okay. So I walk in and he's literally dragging me down the thing, like leading a kid to the Christmas tree in the morning, right? And he shows me a TV on the wall. And I'm like, so what's this? He's like, it's your new digital touch screen, blah, blah, blah. It's great. You can use your finger to drag your Jira cards from left to right. I'm like, cool. How much did this cost? Well, the TV was like $5,000, and then facilities cross charges us like another couple thousand. I'm like, so like $8,000. Yeah. So $8,000 to drag Jira cards across the screen with your finger was cool, but $900 in kindergarten art supplies in the workplace was bad. And I mean, that's the type of organizational mindset that it works against, right? Do you both have similar stories from your work for things like that? Or did I just yet again find an anomaly in the workplace?
I think we see that all the time. Like, I don't know, every time we get a question, as we did today, actually, about a guy who wanted to take this workshop into their company, is always a struggle about the finances and how do we finance this and so on. So it is tricky ground, isn't it?
But I think working within the field of Agile, as you do, you've always found it easier to sell in something different, something fun, something new. Whereas in my experience in financial services, and again, something we talked about earlier, if I kind of come in and go, right, we're going to get the arts and crafts out and we're going to do this, it's just like, no, it's sort of culturally blocked or just not imagined. So you got to kind of choose your audience, and quite often, whether it's with your team, you can introduce this in, whether it's team building or something a bit different. But then maybe the output then has to be tailored back into the Excel spreadsheet, back into the PowerPoint, back into the memo. So I don't think you need to just take no for an answer and just stop because the culture of the organization or the ways of working of the organization won't accept it. There's always a way if you believe creativity, innovation, and doing things different is a good thing to do. And it doesn't just have to be drawing. There's loads of other ways that you can create that as well.
Yeah, go.
Well, I know you and I both have digital whiteboards and tools like that. So I know that my personal Post-it and marker budget has drastically went down. And with the world of remote work being here to stay,
that's an American thing mostly, I think.
Well, that is true. I've heard that a lot in the last 48 hours too. But what do you think about this convergence of physical art and materials with the increasing digital and remote and hybrid work?
It depends.
50 cents today. Keep it up, buddy. What's it depend on? Remember, you were told at dinner last night that it depends by Jose. It depends isn't bad if you say what it depends on. So what's it depend on?
It depends on many things. That I hate hybrid working environments very vastly from the core of my heart. Okay. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. Especially, I think it was you that over breakfast mentioned like the hybrid class, like a couple people join physically and the rest joins virtually. I think that's a really dumb idea because it loses its power, and also you lose the touch with the actual pen and like the paper, etc. Like whiteboards, they work if you're completely virtual. So you're saying, just for the listeners, you're saying that you're okay with remote, you're okay with in person, but it's trying to mix the two in one session that you hate. Yes. Is that right? Okay. Yes, absolutely. And the people who join virtual classes aren't already okay with joining virtual classes. So they have a different expectation of whatever visual that you will pull up. Mm-hmm. But if I'm going to draw on a whiteboard in a physical class, it's going to suck. Mm-hmm. Any tips and tricks for this? Because we were talking at breakfast. Don't do hybrid. Don't do hybrid.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to do hybrid. Suck it up, Sander. Do it.
So I love it. That's the soundbite. Suck it up, Sander. So, Ali, you were talking about like you had either taken pictures or scanned physical things and uploaded them or copied them somehow to Miro or Mural or something. Is that what you recommend?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, everyone's got a mobile phone, so pen and paper and take a shot of it and upload it to Miro, and that's some sort of acceptable middle ground, isn't it?
Right. And here's where I'm going with that is I think that, I mean, I agree with all of you that, especially Ben, that hybrid's here to stay. Sometimes you're just going to have to do it. But I also agree that if everyone's in the room or if everybody's remote, I'm better as a facilitator, as a trainer, as a coach, whatever. But I think it's 2025 people. We have cell phones. Take a picture of a flip chart. I have the Mural app on my phone. I can post it to a Mural in 2 clicks and all that. I think it's even easier. And then, Ali and Sunder and I were talking about Procreate and iPads. I mean, how many of us don't have something like an iPad or a Remarkable or some sort of digital input device that we can use as like a cheaper digital whiteboard these days? Mm-hmm. So, and I only say that to say, I don't think anyone has a good excuse to say, I can't draw with the very simple tools in the book that you guys give. And with things being cheaper than ever before,
I think there's a bit of responsibility on the facilitator or the person who's called the meeting or the workshop to just figure it out. And if that's, you got the screens in the room and you get a whiteboard and you stick it so that the people who are dialing in can see it, then do that. If you can get people to load things up, there's always a will or a way. What they will find, to your point, Sander, is the guys who have dialed in, if the majority in the room, they're not going to have such a great experience. Now, budgets permitting, locations permitting, if you do a great workshop and there's a buzz in the room and the people can feel it, I bet they turn up to the next one, etc. And then you kind of, over time, you get more people turning up because you, as a facilitator or as a leader, start to get recognized for doing valuable, fun, engaging workshops, and people do want to turn up to them. And I think we've just sort of lost the skill or the recognition that we got to take responsibility to get the engagement and the input and the outcomes that we want.
Fair enough. Looking at the time, because Trisha Broderick's keynote is about to start as well. We close this podcast with the ChatGPT question of the day in product management. We won't have time to do the drawing stuff. Oh, you can. Fair. So you can draw the answer to the question of ChatGPT. What's a commonly
Producer's going to produce.
What's a commonly accepted best practice in product management that you actually disagree with? Now, try and draw that.
Let me just melt that a second.
Yeah, let's
product
for a
management.
second.
Yeah.
Who are
commonly
you?
accepted best practice.
How come ChatGPT's come up with that? We haven't talked about product management once.
No.
No, it's a podcast related to product management.
Oh, it's a product management podcast.
Mostly agility.
I missed that.
It's sort of in the name, agility.
God, he stumped us now. I thought we were going to do the drawing instead.
I'm like, Ben, you go first.
Okay, so
You can draw this out.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
He's better with words. You're better with
why
visuals.
don't you
Yeah, but
draw what I say?
Okay,
Visual
I like
sketch
that.
noting.
That's a deal.
Yeah, okay.
Did you see that? How we came to a compromise?
Yeah.
Story of our
Divided and
lives.
conquered. Stay in their lane.
Yeah.
Wild.
Okay, so I think one of the commonly accepted best practices of product management, not being a subject matter expert on product management, is that everything has to be seen as a product or a service. And if you're setting that rule, everything has to be a product and service, then you've just constrained people and blocked them in or locked them into a way of thinking.
I think he's leading the witness a little bit, giving.
Do you need me to repeat myself?
Yes,
Okay.
I actually do.
Is that because you didn't understand?
There was a lot of words.
Okay, a lot of words. I've had that I've had that feedback before. By
Good point, Ben.
I was going to say, I see a common theme in Ollie's feedback.
if you tell people that everything has to be a product or service, you lock them in and constrain their thinking.
Okay. Let's see what Ollie's going to come up with. To be fair, you're not the first ones that we put on the spot.
No, I bet.
Trisha did
And this is like,
Trisha did a handstand.
Might be easier to do a handstand, actually.
Well, you can go next.
It feels like you would almost have to repeat that again. I'm sorry, but if you
Would you like me to tell you what to draw?
Oh, just make it purple.
Do a great big... I wouldn't dare. I've learned my lesson. I've learned my lesson on that.
So I'll ask about what you mean, and maybe it'll give Ollie some feedback. So when you're saying not everything has to be a product and service because that creates a constraint.
Yeah.
Is there something that comes to mind, like a product, like something that a team you've worked on where calling it a product was a mistake? Because I totally agree with you, by the way.
So I'm almost going to contradict myself because actually I do think if you went to teams like audit or internal audit, or you went to HR, or you went to legal, etc., and you said, think of what you do as a product or service, actually that might help them understand where they fit into the organization and in their communication and their relationships with other business areas. But I think the risk is when you're working in a creative environment, you want people to be as creative as possible. If you start setting rules, then you're constraining their thinking. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, make it a product and service, make it a product and service, make it a product and service. And they're not actually solving the problem, or they've lost sight of the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things I see, and I don't know if this is kind of what you're getting at, is sometimes there's not significant enough ROI to try and help somebody see their work as a product or service, right? Like it could still be useful, but there's in every organization, there's just shit that has to get done, right? And we could spend months trying to show people who their customers are and do personas and looking at roadmaps and challenging value and value scores and all that stuff. But it's probably, there's not significant enough return on that time is kind of what I see.
And I think if you get too purist about it, you start to try and force round pegs into square holes, etc. But with the team that I'm working at the moment, asking them to articulate their 2 or 3 products or services that they can offer has actually cut down so much noise and outside sort of kind of confusion, because they've been asked to do something quite simple, which is define their 2 or 3 products and services. But then maybe if we started to go deeper into the rules and regulations and the specifics, as maybe has been done with some agile frameworks and tools and techniques, then we'd be stifling the creativity and the free thinking, etc. So I suppose what I like about agile is that conceptual layer, not the tools and techniques. So I will always go towards the conceptual or the system or the environmental layer, as opposed to the you must do this and then must do that and must do that and give the rule book.
Mm-hmm. Now we're going to look at Ollie.
Yeah, I feel stuck. I feel like
Is that because Ben's words were so confusing?
a little bit like that. Yeah,
And I think she visualized a product locked in a box, which is
sort of.
That's exactly what I meant.
Yeah.
I wish we'd been able to work like this over the last 2 years, Ollie. It would have been beautiful. It would have been beautiful. This book would have been 4 times the size. We'd be on volume 4 or 5
You'd be like
by
George
now.
R. R. Martin, right?
Yeah.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
4 times the size and 2 times the amount of time. You're from Jeff Sutherland. Anyway, let's start wrapping up. Appreciate you, and appreciate you taking up the challenge to try and draw on the spot, because I know it's super challenging, especially with a question like this.
Yeah. No.
Any closing remarks from your side?
No, I could talk to these two for a long time, and I think everyone should check out their book. I know it's going to be a part of my library. I've got a number of visual and sketching type books, and this I thumbed through it during your workshop. I'm like, I got to have this. So
good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Appreciate you guys being here.
Thanks very much. Thanks for the invite.
you.
It's good fun. Cheers.
That is all for today. Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode, let us know by hitting that like button. Share it with friends and colleagues, sharing a message on LinkedIn, joining our warm and welcoming Discord community, or attend recordings as a virtual audience. You can find all the relevant links in the show notes. We hope you'll tune back in for the next episode of the Mastering Agility podcast.